Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey peeps, today we're going to take a look at Rick and Morty Total Rickall card game from Cryptozoic Entertainment. This is, of course, a card game based off of the, I'll say, viral hit animated adult-oriented show from Adult Swim on Cartoon Network called Rick and Morty, which I'll say right now, if you have not watched that show, if you have any inclination to like that kind of show, stop and go and watch that show. The entire show is amazing, and this game in particular, the name Total Rickall, every name, or I think almost every name of every episode of the show uses the word Rick, because that's one of the main characters, in some sort of stupid way in the title. So that's where that comes from. But this particular episode, Total Rickall, is amazing. I mean, it's in a show of great episodes, all great episodes. It's even better than most of them. It's that good. So, and if you're going to do that, if you are going to take my advice, if it pushes you over the edge to go watch it, then probably stop this and go and watch at least that episode in particular, then come back and finish it, because for people who are not inclined to watch the show or know what the hell this episode is, I'm going to explain it now, because it really is kind of required to know what the theme of the game is. So if you don't want to be spoiled, in other words, you can stop and go watch it. But otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and barrel forward. Now, in this episode of the show, first off, just real quick, the show is about the scientist named Rick and his grandson Morty, who go off on wild intergalactic adventures. They're like dark mirror versions of the Doc and Marty from Back to the Future, clearly inspired by them, but like Rick is just like this hard-drinking, alcoholic, amoral person. Morty is like this, creepy teenage pervert kid, whatever. But what Total Rickall is sometimes the rest of the family gets involved in their shenanigans, and their house gets infested with these space parasites. The space parasites can essentially, as soon as they come into contact with you, implant false memories into your brain, making you believe that you have always known them, that you have always been close, that you have always been good friends, and has always been that way. They've just always been there. And so, at the beginning of the show, in the beginning of that episode, you're sitting, the audience is watching them at the table as normal, but there's Uncle Steve at the table, and everyone's like, wait, who's Uncle Steve? There's no Uncle Steve in the show. And it's a parasite, and they figure that out eventually. But then they lock down the house, and more parasites start showing up as incredibly wacky, bizarre characters, as you'll see when I show you the artwork in the game. And long story short, just to get to the end, eventually they figure out that the only way to tell which parasites are real and what are not, what are just like fake things, parasites masquerading as loved ones, are that the parasites only implant good memories. So if you have bad memories of someone, that means they're not a parasite. And of course, the family in the show all have tons and tons of bad memories of each other. That's how they tell them apart. And there's a whole other thing with Mr. Poopy Butthole I won't spoil. So, but that should give you an indication of the tone of the show. But it's a great episode, great show, and what this card game does is basically take that premise and makes it into a cooperative game as a standard mode, fully cooperative, where you are trying to figure out what character cards out on the table are parasites or real, and hopefully get clear the board of all the parasites and have only reals out on the table. Or you play in the advanced mode, which is semi-cooperative, sort of, weirdly, in that you, the players, it's just complicated, we'll get to it, but it's not that you're the parasite or real, it's that you have a very close friend in the house that is either a real or a parasite, and you may not even want to believe that they're a parasite, and so it may be that you and the other... Okay, it's complicated. Let me go ahead and show you. Show, don't tell, right? Let me show you how the game works in both modes, then we're going to come back, I'll let you know what I think. The Rick and Morty Total Rickall card game is either a cooperative game for 2 to 5 players or a semi-cooperative game for 3 to 5 players, depending on whether you play the standard or advanced mode. I'll explain the standard mode first, then go over the differences in the advanced mode. In Standard, players are cooperating together to make sure every character out on the table is real and not a parasite. The best way to do that is to shoot them, which makes them revert to their parasite form, if they're really a parasite. If you accidentally shoot too many real characters, you lose the game. To start off, set up the identity deck. There are only 2 types of cards, 10 real cards and 20 parasite cards. Remove 4 reals and 2 parasites, which are only used for the advanced game. Shuffle the rest, and place a number of cards face down on the table in a row equal to twice the number of players without looking at them. Leave the deck nearby. Next are the characters. There are 24 characters in the house who could potentially be real or parasites. They are color-coded, blue, green, or red, which I'll explain the relevance of later. Most of the cards are just artwork with a name and possibly a quote from the show, but a few characters actually have special texts, like Frankenstein's monster being able to take an extra hit, or Mr. Poopy Butthole making the players lose if they shoot him and he's actually real. Shuffle up these characters and put one on top of each identity card you've already placed on the table. This will indicate their hidden alignment. Shuffle up the action cards and deal 3 out to everybody. You can't show these cards to the other players or say explicitly which cards you have, even though you're cooperating, but you can discuss strategy and what you're capable of on your turn fairly liberally. Action cards enable you to either gain information about the character's alignments or rain fiery vengeance upon them. Some cards let you shoot the characters, some of them let you peek at identity cards, and some will even randomly mix up the identities of the characters. Blue, green, and yellow cards can only affect characters of the corresponding colors, but the white cards are general use. Someone is randomly given the first player token, and the game begins. At the start of each round, every player places a card from their hand face down simultaneously, then draws a card to replace it. Once everyone is locked in, you all flip them over simultaneously. However, they actually get resolved in turn order, starting with the first player and going clockwise. In this way, you can see what the other players are about to do and possibly discuss strategy and adjust accordingly, if possible. You are bound to perform whatever action card you played if it applies. Sometimes there will be no valid targets and the action just doesn't happen, which is fine and is sometimes something you will do on purpose. Remember, your goal is to ascertain the identities of the characters and target the parasites you find while avoiding shooting the reals. If your action forces you to shoot one of the characters, discard the character card and reveal the identity card from underneath it. If it's a parasite, congratulations. Simply discard the card and keep playing. Do not immediately place out another character, but do keep gaps in the lineup. If it was real, well, that's a problem. Make a separate fail pile for the real identity cards that you've shot. If you ever shoot your 4th real character, the game immediately ends with all of the players losing. Also, even if the game doesn't end, the player who shot a real has to discard a card from their hand. You only draw 1 card each turn, so you may end up with less than 3 cards in your hand for the rest of the game because of this. At any point during the game, as long as it's not right in the middle of an action, any player can declare that they believe every character currently alive on the table is real. Then, the players vote. If at least half of all players agree, the game stops, and all the remaining identity cards in play are revealed. If they are all real, congratulations, you've just won the game. If even one of them is a parasite, however, you've all just lost. Assuming that doesn't happen, the game continues. After every player has resolved their action card, those cards are discarded and the first player marker passes to the next player in clockwise order. Regardless of whether or not a character was shot that turn, one and only one new character will be added to the lineup, with a new identity card placed underneath it. Gaps in the lineup closest to the start of the row are always filled first. Part of this game is memory, you see, so characters and their identities need to stay where they are. If after placing a character there are no more characters in the deck, the following round will be the last round. Now you must do your best to make sure only reals are left on the table at the end of the round, even if you don't make a declaration. So that's all of the standard mode. So what does the advanced mode do differently? Every player gets a random character dealt to them at the start of the game, together with one of those identity cards I told you to put aside. Remember, there were 4 reals and 2 parasites, and any extras are put back in the box without looking. So depending on the number of players, there could be 2 parasites among the player characters, or 0. This is a character that you have a special bond with. You can peek at their identity card, and you must always claim that they are real. You want what they want. If your character is a parasite, you want the other players to make a declaration of all reals on the table and be wrong about it, or you want to run out the deck and make sure there's at least one parasite left on the board at the very end. Even if that doesn't come to pass, there's still a chance for you to win, which we'll come back to in a minute. Most of the rest of the game is played out exactly the same as the standard mode. However, most important to note is that any card that affects characters of a certain color will also affect the player character cards. This means that cards like Jerry and Summer that randomize the identity cards will also affect your character. You may, in fact, switch alignment several times during the game. Shooting characters is also a bit different, and extremely weird, in fact. If you shoot another player's character with an action card, and they were a parasite, their character is discarded and not replaced, but the player is not out of the game. Instead, their eyes are opened, quote unquote, and they are now on the real team for the rest of the game. Shooting real players, however, still sucks. In addition to discarding a card, the player who took the shot will lose the game for their entire team if they just shot the fourth real character. It doesn't matter who shot the other three. Furthermore, a player whose character was real does draw a new character and identity, which means they may have just flipped their alignment again. If the worst happens for the parasites and the players eliminate every parasite from the table and declare the end or run out the deck, it's not over yet. You then move on to a special dinner table phase, where, in player order, every player has the opportunity to shoot someone else. Action cards are meaningless now, by the way. The reals want to root out any parasites from amongst the other players, while the parasites just want the game to end and not risk anyone getting shot at all. If even one parasite player remains alive at the end of the dinner table phase, the parasites win. And that is the Rick and Morty Total Rickall card game, both the standard mode and the advanced mode. So it's always interesting when I review a game that has different game modes. Sometimes it's completely irrelevant, or sometimes I completely ignore one game mode, like usually it's the standard mode, and just skip right to advanced, and that's the way to play. Quadropolis was the most recent example of that, because that's how it's supposed to be played. It's not that much more complicated, and it does add more depth to the game. Rick and Morty Total Rickall card game is an exception to that, I've found, because both modes have their own merits, and that's why I taught them in the overview separately. So the standard mode, I actually was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. It's not great, okay? It's not overwhelming, it's nothing to write home about, but it's solid in the sense that, it's fully cooperative, which is nice, and it's a bit of deduction. It's like, okay, but it's mostly hand management. It's not so much deduction as just hand management, and the way that it works with the cards resolving, where everyone plays a card, then you flip it, and you can talk strategy, some limited amount of strategy with each other. You can't show each other your cards, but you can say things, sort of maybe a step up of what you can do in Shadows over Camelot, which is good. And then you see what everyone has played, but you have to resolve them in a certain order. But then, even then, you can still at least do some planning. Like, okay, I'm shooting a blue character this turn, but based on the card that he played before me, maybe I'll shoot this one instead. So there's still decision making in the game. There's still real cooperation with the other players. The whole color coding system works fairly well because it forces you to make interesting decisions as to which color card do I play now, and is it devastating if I were to play the Jerry and mix together all these cards right now? It usually is, but sometimes it doesn't matter. Do I play a card knowing that it does nothing for us right now? It will do nothing, but it's better than the alternative, and it might even be better to play it later, but it's better than the alternative of having to shoot someone. But of course, there are the Beth cards, I think it's called Is There Something Wrong, Beth?, where you're going to have to shoot someone. You have no choice. It must be the next card that you play. So sometimes you have to make tough decisions in that case. So it's not super complicated. It's definitely not complicated. It's very easy to learn and very fast to play, as a matter of fact. And it might even be too simple in the standard mode. That is why it's the standard mode. And yet, its speed and the fact that there is some real cooperation between the players and decision making led me to enjoy it more than I thought that I would. And I will, of course, be fully upfront, honest, and say that me liking the characters and the little quotes from the show and remembering that episode and remembering Rick and Morty as a whole, and also playing with at least one other person who had also enjoyed the show and that episode as much as I did, helped. If you don't have that connection, I'd still say it's fine, the standard mode, but you definitely aren't going to enjoy it as much. So there's that. But okay, whether or not it was great or not, as long as it was just okay, I was excited to try the advanced mode after we played the standard mode. Because I'm like, okay, good baseline to start off with, go up to the advanced mode, now it's like a trader type system, hidden roles, who's on what team, who's a parasite, who's not, wow, how are we going to do this? That'll be even amazing, right? No. It also is fine. And maybe a little bit better because at least it's more interesting and there's more tension. A little bit more tension. The main problem, there's a few problems with the advanced mode. One of them is just that it's kind of convoluted. At least thematically, it's like, okay, well, you're not the parasite or real person. It's the character attached to you. And some cards will not affect you. Like, you can't just shoot. Like, some cards will not just say, that, like the Morty card won't just let you look at a character's identity or the character's or the player's character's identity card. But then, like, Jerry will work on everything. And that. So it's a little bit too convoluted. It could have just been very simple. Say, you, the player, are a parasite or not. I think would have been a little more straightforward. Maybe not completely honest to the show, but okay, whatever. But more than that, I think that the main issues that I had. So in this type of game, and by the way, I played this with people who hated, who hate hit and roll spy games like Resistance, Spyfall, whatever the case might be. And so they did not have this problem that I had. So I'll say that. So if you're like that, those people, you will not think this is a big complaint. But for me, I love those kind of hidden role games because of the tension. It's always like, who's plotting against me? What are you? I love lying. I love bluffing. I'm not saying I'm good at it, but I enjoy it. I love acting. And so that's what I was looking forward to in this. And I realized that it's a simple card game, so it wasn't going to be quite as in-depth as some other hidden role games I played. It's no Battlestar Galactica, but at least there would be something of that. And there is the potential for that, but the problem is your roles in this game, or your character's roles, the parasite or real, get flipped around constantly. Because of cards like Jerry, they're always moving around, so it's like, all right, I'm going to get my strategy going, I'm going to build up trust, I know I'm a parasite, now I'm going to lie, and then everything gets flipped around, it's like, oh, I'm real now. Okay. And then it's very easy for people to see what you are. It's very easy for people to know if you're lying at that point. So it's hard to build up any kind of strategy as the liar, whatever the case might be. On top of which, it's very weird that if you shoot someone who is actually a parasite, like you shoot a player's character that's a parasite, all of a sudden they're just real. They're on the real team. Like, you've opened their eyes. But what's the point of that exactly? I don't like player elimination in games, but that almost would have made more sense. It's more stakes, it's more skin in the game. Because as it is, in one of the two advanced game modes that I played, or games that I played with the advanced mode, we got to the final dinner table, because that's what it got down to, and we were all on the same team. And we kind of knew that going in. We definitely knew that going in within the last couple of rounds. And then, even before that, we had a good idea. There was a large portion of the game where there was no tension whatsoever because we were all real and we knew it. And once everyone knows that, the incentive to play any kind of card that mixes things up or shoots anybody, like the Jerry card, or to aim our gun cards at each other, that incentive was gone. Because it's just like, well, let's just win together. So, again, there is enough intrigue there that I would probably just play the advanced mode from now on. And I like the game. I'm keeping it. and I would probably play the advanced mode from now on, but man, it feels like kind of a waste opportunity. This is one of those games where I'm like, I like it enough that I might even tinker with the rules a bit to see if I can make it more interesting, because I just feel like the real meat and bones or whatever of a hit and roll game are there, but the way the rules are worded, it just doesn't come together well. It's just too easy for things to get flipped around all the time, and for you to not be able to like really seep into your role of the trader. And because it's not really that you're a trader, it's just a constantly shifting alignment, and then you can all end up on the same alignment. So it's just odd, and I wish it wasn't like that. But because the game itself, like the baseline of the game, the fully cooperative mode, the standard mode is solid, and it would have been very easy to just build on that with a simple trader mode, and it feels like it was kind of flubbed. But overall, though, for a licensed game, especially a small card game, they could have easily just made like some sort of stupid Uno variant. They went out of their way to do something creative with this, especially basing it on one episode, which was itself a creative benchmark of this series. And I super appreciate that. I really do. I don't want to criticize this game too much, because I love the show. I love that they went out of their way to do something creative and weird, which, frankly, licensed or not, most card games, simple card games, don't do that anymore. It's just, let's copy someone else's work, you know? They tried to make something unique and brave, and I really appreciate that. And if you are a fan of the show, I definitely recommend it. Even if you're not a fan of the show, try it, especially if you want a light card game. You might be surprised. That is Rick and Morty Total Rickall card game from Cryptozoic Entertainment. I like it well enough.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.